Welcome everyone, Costin here with the discussion about campaign customization in Total War Pharaoh Dynasties. The game is, as far as I can see it, the game is built around the idea that to some degree or another, you will be using campaign customization. So this video is to go over some of the best settings that are available in campaign customization that you can use to enrich your campaign. Now, first off, I do wish to mention that in terms of campaign customization, if you're looking to make things more difficult for you, you probably would want to increase the difficulty first and foremost, though it would certainly be nicer to have the same kind of stats change benefit that you do have in Warhammer 3, though I'm not quite sure if the AI gets any kind of stats benefit. So anyway, we're going to start from general to AI, BAL, and then campaign, because campaign is going to have the most settings. Keep in mind there are some things you can change throughout the course of your campaign, and then there are things you cannot. So there's nothing really to change over here. The only thing I would do is just set advice frequency to minimal. The advisor in the game just doesn't feel like he is all that good. If you want to learn to play the game, you can certainly use a guided tutorial, but that is a different discussion. Now, in terms of AI customization, many of the things here I will not change. The AI can already be very aggressive against you, so making it more aggressive against you, it's not really going to change that much except make things a bit more frustrating. Although, I guess if you want to fight a war with literally everyone, you could certainly go with this. Now, in terms of other benefits, I would recommend not touching most of the things here, because the AI already on higher difficulties does have all kinds of benefits in replenishment, recruitment, building construction, etc., etc. So set the difficulty higher before you mess with these. But of course, if you want to make the AI essentially have free troops, yes, you can adjust army upkeep. One of the things you could do, certainly, would be to lower construction cost. It's only 10%. I wish it could be more, and this is going to be a running theme for this kind of video. There are certainly some things that would be great. Like, I wish I could lower construction costs for AI buildings by, say, a quarter, but that is not necessarily available at the moment. You can also set the AI resources to medium, high, or low, or just keep it on default. I would say not going with high, because the AI will squander a lot of those resources, and really it's actually a buff to you, because when they have a huge cache of resources, you will be able to trade for those resources and end up getting a significant benefit on your own right. Though you might want to buff it up to medium if you're also increasing your own resources, but that would be about it. Replenishment, again, recruitment capacity, all that, the AI already has benefits with respect to that. Now, in terms of BAL, you can make your own units never out, enemy units never out. I would not switch this out, nor would I switch out auto resolve. But if you want to play a campaign where you fight every battle manually, absolutely. One of the things I would certainly switch out would be to increase a missile unit ammunition. You can switch this during the course of your campaign, so if you really want missile units to have a far bigger role in battles, in terms of ammunition, at the very least, you can certainly increase that. You can also increase weather severity in battles, dynamic weather severity, to really make that matter significantly more, because there's a lot of units that are built around the idea that they're better in certain weather or certain terrain. So same notion with battle terrain severity. Can certainly make battles a bit more interesting than they are default. Personally, I do play with them on default. I think it's decent enough, but hey, if you want to make things, if you really want to push for that uniqueness of units, you can certainly set these higher. And also one thing that I would certainly increase would be morale penalties from flanking to very high. The reason behind this is that morale penalties, as they currently are in the game, when you're flanked on a default level, they're not particularly great. So you're going to have entire armies being flanked completely and they will not break. Even when they're surrounded on all sides, you can have a unit surrounded on all sides and they'll fight to the death without having unbreakable morale. And then lethality chance, this is one of the missed opportunities as far as I see it. One of the things I would have liked to have seen is just the ability of increasing lethality to make battles better, but the way we have it right now is just you can disable lethality, or you can make 100%. 100% just doesn't work very well. I would like options to say double lethality or increase it by 25%, 50%, as opposed to and when I say 25%, 50%, all that, or doubling it, I mean compared to the values that units already have, as opposed to, 25% base chance. Because that way units with high lethality would still be very, very useful. Then we get into the campaign side of things. So you have things over here that you can change during the campaign and things you can change only before you start the campaign. This is where you can really make your campaign your own. One of the things I would absolutely change is increasing your starting budget. And if you're looking to play a longer campaign, you can also set resource deposit values to medium or high. Though even the baseline deposit level, they will almost never drain. Or if you want to make resources actually matter, you can set it to low, but that's probably going to screw the AI over rather than you. You can also completely randomize the starting position, the personalities of various factions, if you'd really want to have a bit of fun. Then you can increase the research rate. I would recommend doing so, because increasing research rate is very useful, because most of the time when it comes to research in Total War games, and this applies across the board, there is certain research things that you want, that you'll always go for, and you're not going to bother with anything else. So I would absolutely recommend going for that. You can also enable all royal powers, or you only have the chosen royal traditions powers. This does take away some of the variety that you might see in different courts, but at the same time, there are some royal powers that are just better than others and might actually be better suited in another area of the campaign than where that court is. So that's a preference thing, I would say, on or off. I'd recommend playing around with the court, seeing how it is. In terms of diplomatic deals with opinion thresholds, I would probably set this to high. You do have settings to make it more difficult, but here's the thing about diplomacy. There are various ways to cheese it, and I've said this in Warhammer 3, that if something is the best option, cheese or not, then there's no real other option. And that's kind of the problem with diplomacy. Region trading is so powerful, and other things are so powerful that you are incentivized to do them in order to get what you want. Like, oh, you want resources? Region trade. You want a confederation? Abuse region trading, and so on and so forth. Well, with a higher threshold of deals plus 20 points, it's a shame that's only 20 points, because I would like 10. I think 10 would be fine. But with this, you can avoid some of that bullshit. Now, keep in mind that it will affect all deals, so you got to be concerned about how you abuse it, so just bear that aspect in mind, but it does help deal with some of that bullshit. That's my personal perspective on that. And with the gods, have them all discovered, because it's quite silly from my perspective, like, oh, I'm playing a Greek faction and I don't have someone like Aphrodite unlocked, which is, yes, just a fairly weird one to take in consideration. You can disable availability of various gods. You may want to do so, especially if you have all of them discovered. It's just notifications, but obviously don't do so if you're playing like Egypt or Hittites or Canaanites. Though they didn't add the Aegean or the Mesopotamian gods over there. Now, army size. This is an interesting one, because on one hand, the reaction you might have, and certainly the reaction I had initially, is that you obviously wouldn't want to enable this, right? Because ultimately, you do have a lot of armies to deal with. You have stacks of 20 units, you have garrisons, all that. So limiting your army is just going to make taking territory more annoying. But at the same time, this is not a game with supply lines for armies. You have administration cost for every unit, for every main settlement building, absolutely. But you don't have a supply line just because you maintain an extra army. So it might actually be better to have a bunch of smaller forces running around dealing with various things, though keep the downsides in mind with respect to this. So you might want to limit it to, say, 15 if you want to. Could certainly add a more interesting dynamic to a campaign. Player recruitment capacity, yeah, I would increase this. The reason I would increase this is because the way you recruit units in this game, you obviously want to recruit the best units. By far, don't spend resources unless you absolutely have to spend resources on cheaper units. And there's so many special units you can recruit anyway, globally, that just being able to recruit stuff faster will allow you to get them to the front faster, and instead of artificially slowing you down because, yeah, you only start with 2 recruitment slots. That's my perspective on this. So either high or medium. You can reveal the playable area. You can toggle pillars of civilization events. So events are disasters, that kind of stuff, or benefits. Playable area will show the map. I would recommend using it only to scout the area around when you're starting a new campaign and you want to know what you're going to be dealing with, but otherwise I wouldn't use it for anything else. Turns per year and seasonal effects. So this is an interesting one. Seasonal effects, I could probably really argue that setting them strong would be really good, because it would certainly add a better amount of variety in a campaign. As for turns per year, this depends on what you want. Do you want a campaign where very few years pass and the same leaders stay in charge and all that? Or do you want things to move fast? And because of that, what is going to happen is faction leaders will die and new ones will take over. It is a preference thing. Personally, I would probably slow it down. That's my perspective. Toggle immortal faction leaders. Now, I would turn this on. The reason I would turn this on is for the sake of the AI, not for your sake. See, one of the problems that existed in Shogun 2 is that many of the faction leaders would die, and you'd end up either facing captains or no-name generals. And, you know, I want to fight Takeda Shinken and Sugi Kenshin, and, you know, so on and so forth. But that wouldn't happen in Shogun 2. That's one of the problems. I think it would be great to have more options here, like being able to have faction leaders that can die from old age, but not die in battle. At least initially, you know, they get wounded a couple of times, their chance of dying after each battle does increase, and at one point they just die in battle, like completely die in battle. So that is certainly one thing I would enable over here, considering the options we have. But yeah, some of these options could be improved further. A lot of things could be improved further, like I would like to lower construction costs or recruitment costs, for instance, not just upkeep costs, as an example. Features locked at the start. Turn this off, you'll have a much better campaign for it, as opposed to waiting 9 turns to unlock those features to begin with. All of those features. Pillars of Civilization, you can turn these off or keep them on. You can even make them stronger. You can visually override some of these settings, like, hey, you want to play your entire campaign in a collapse mode, or looking like collapse? Absolutely. You can also increase disaster frequency if you want to. The default one is fine. As I do see it. Did I forget anything over here? Yeah, no, I didn't. In terms of other things, I would set the AI legitimacy modifier to high or very high. Maybe not very high, but certainly high. The reason I would do so is because it's very easy, because the main source of legitimacy right now is for battles. Like, certainly there are good titles available out there that you can use, but the main source of legitimacy is going to come from battles. The benefit of setting this bonus modifier higher is that the AI will somehow be able to keep up with you, as opposed to you just skyrocketing over there and never facing a civil war once you become king, not having to work for it. Iron Man mode, I turn it off as opposed to on, because just not a great situation with that. There is a performance downgrade from a perspective, and it will make it safer in terms of not losing your saves. Like, this has happened before. I've lost many campaigns on Legendary because of this. So it is just a safer option. Now, you know, you could say it's making it easier. I don't really think Iron Man is really that much difficulty. It's more of an annoyance than anything else. Character campaign movement range. This is a personal preference one. I would set it to high, because keep in mind, you do still have to stop at settlements to take them over. And the AI also gains this movement range. So you could certainly make a more interesting campaign where you are actually vulnerable, because one of the things that happens in Total War right now, or one of the best ways to play, is to conquer things as quickly as possible and just overwhelm the AI. It's still the case regardless of the settings you're using, but when the AI has more movement range, it can react to you faster compared to everything. You can disable the diplomatic trespassing penalty, increase attrition damage if you want to, for things like sea lanes, disallow rebellions, or lower or increase the rebellion threshold. That's up to you. Then we have fully equipped generals and generals at max rank. Personally, I would not turn these on. I would like a middle option. Like in Warhammer 3, there's campaign customization mods that allow you to select the level that generals can get recruited on, as opposed to just max rank with full items. So I think some more options here would be good, but as it is, like, I just think it trivializes leveling if you set everyone to max rank. That's my personal perspective. See people invasion turn off, they're nothing more than an annoyance, they're not really a challenge, they're just like, whatever. Like, it would be nice if the actual see people mechanic was more than a gimmick, but it is just a gimmick. Everything else, like, you could set unit replenishment too high, but baseline replenishment is pretty decent. Lowering upkeep, I would lower it by 50%. The reason I would lower it, let me explain this. The reason I would lower it is right now, the way the game is played, is that if you know what you're doing, what you're going to want to do is get as many armies as possible, as quickly as possible. It doesn't matter if your entire economy is in the red. That's not relevant. Especially because you can trade regions, you can trade resources. So the reason you want to lower the upkeep is because you want to be able to play a campaign where you're not spending turn after turn after turn after turn, just trading resources to keep your armies going. That is one of the reasons for that. Or ending up in a situation, yeah, you do want to maintain armies because you obviously don't want to be overwhelmed by the AI with all of its economic benefits. That is my perspective on that. Like, from a practical standpoint, it doesn't necessarily change the strength you have, but from a theoretical standpoint, and practical one, but it just makes it less frustrating because you don't have to do all of that. You can argue it makes you stronger because, yeah, you're not having to trade your resources away, but not quite, not really. Happiness per turn, general experience rate, I would increase this. Like, I think dealing with higher ranked generals is a better thing. And character aging survival chance, again, just personal preference. Happiness is perfectly fine by default, so that would be about it. So let's just save it under, say, test over here. And those are the kind of settings I would use in my campaign. Let me know what you guys think, what kind of settings you guys would want to use, what you would like to see added into the game, what kind of settings you think are missing over there. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.